Will homeschooling change your marriage? Absolutely, it will. But it's up to us if we want that to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back today with my good friend, Misty Bailey. And you guys may recognize her name. It has been quite some time since she's been on the podcast. But Misty, your podcast is one of the most listened to episodes I think that we've ever had, because your episode, we talked about salt and light and about kids being salt and light in the public schools, and how so many people have that misconception that we need to have our kids in public schools to be the salt and light. And you just straight up debunked that myth. And so that was just a huge episode that we've had so many people listen to. And so I am so glad to have you back. We are talking about marriage this week. This is part of our Schoolhouse Rocked family series. Misty is great. She's got so many good resources and just some wisdom that she is going to share with us this week about marriage from a homeschool mom. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. No parent should homeschool alone. You have a God-given calling to bring up your child to love God and to steward his creation. And BJU Press exists to help you be successful in that endeavor. Visit their website at bjupresshomeschool.com or call 1-800-845-5731 to connect with an experienced homeschool consultant. Misty, welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad to have you back. I think the last time we recorded, we figured out that it was not the Salt and Light episode, but it was for Homegrown Generation. That was our Homegrown Generation Family Expo in 2020, which our listeners hopefully know by now. We are getting ready to do another Homegrown Generation Family Expo, March 6th through 9th of this year. And we are so excited. It's just coming up very, very quickly here. And so if you guys have not signed up for that yet, go to homegrowngeneration.com and you can get all of the information there. We have another great lineup of speakers this year, and we're super excited. But anyway, that was the last time that Misty was with us. And so Misty, for those who don't know you, tell us who you are and about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had a blog and a podcast for 6 years. And COVID not only shut down the world, but I also ended up during that time deciding to shut down my blog and podcast at the end of 2020. There were lots of just different reasons. I just felt God calling me a different path. But I spent many years just encouraging and inspiring the homeschool community, and I loved it. But, you know, when God shuts doors, we listen. So absolutely do that. I currently help run the Southeast Homeschool Expo in Atlanta, Georgia. I bring in their speakers and their exhibitors. So I've been doing that since COVID, since 2020. And I have 3 kids. I'm getting ready to graduate my oldest, Sob. We homeschooled all the way through kindergarten to senior. She graduates in May. Yep. And then I have a sophomore and a 5th grader. My 5th grader, Daniel, has some special needs, so we throw that in there too. And it's been wonderful. I've loved every minute of homeschooling. And so we're just on a different journey right now with the college years and teens and dating, and I don't have babies anymore. So I've been married for 20 years. My husband and I actually celebrate our 20-year anniversary in March. So super excited about that. It's a big year in the Bailey household.
Yeah, that's awesome. Graduations and big anniversaries, all those things. That's so exciting. So fun. Well, let's talk about marriage again, because this is a topic that, of course, most homeschool moms, you know, have the reality of marriage. And I think homeschooling can sometimes make marriage a little bit harder. Sometimes it can make it better and healthier. But sometimes as homeschool moms, because we've got kids at our feet all day long and tugging at us, and just they're so needy. And I mean, that's the life of a mom, and it's a wonderful life to have. But with having kids constantly needing us all day long, and it doesn't matter their age. I mean, it seems like from, you know, newborn all the way through high school. I mean, you've got a senior this year, they still need mama. But then we've got husbands who also need us as well. And sometimes I know for myself, it is hard to find that balance of, okay, I'm mom, but I'm also wife. And it's not that one is more important than the other. They're both incredibly important. I mean, that's the most important part of my world, is being a wife and a mom. But how can we balance homeschooling and marriage at the same time and thrive in our marriages?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that when I first started homeschooling, I didn't really think about that it would really affect my marriage. You
Yeah.
just think of your day to day, but you don't really think of all of the needs that you're constantly fulfilling. And I will say, as a mom of a high schooler, I think the kids, in a way, need you more the older that they get. You're dealing with a
Yeah.
lot bigger decisions. You're dealing with just so many things as you're preparing these kids to leave the nest. And I honestly think that as my kids have gotten older, it's probably tested our marriage a little bit more, or at least differently than when the kids were younger. And I don't think people really talk about that when you first start homeschooling. When people start homeschooling, as moms, you give the advice of, well, here's your curriculum, here's how you plan, here's how to, homeschool multiple ages. But you don't say, hey, by the way, this is also going to affect your marriage, because homeschooling is a lifestyle choice and it changes every single aspect of your life, including your marriage. And I think it's an important thing that we don't really talk about a whole lot whenever moms get started homeschooling. So it
Yeah.
absolutely affects every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I appreciate that you say it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot because, we go to our co-ops and we go to our play groups and we do our thing. And it's like Facebook on steroids almost, where everyone wants to put their best foot forward. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
wants everyone else to think they've got it all together and that everything is just hunky dory at home and everybody's getting along perfectly. And, you've got the perfect marriage and stuff. And that's not the reality
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of families. A lot of people are struggling a lot. And that can be hard. It can make it difficult to homeschool when you're struggling in your marriage. And it can make it difficult on your marriage when you homeschool. And so
Yeah. And I think something else that we forget, especially as we get into those teenage years, is we're modeling to our teens what marriage is supposed to look like. We're
mhm.
modeling to our teens, the do's and don'ts. One day our daughters are going to have their own house. They're going to have their own husbands. They may end up homeschooling their own kids. And what are we modeling for them in our marriage, as we're living our lives out in front of our kids? And like I said, it's something that we don't really talk about, but it's definitely something that affects every aspect of our lives. So, like, for example, I don't know how your home is, Yvette, but in our home, especially when we first started homeschooling, there were many days that, after the kids went to bed, instead of spending time with my husband, I was grading papers, I was planning for the next day. Um, I was talking about field trips. We'd go out on dates and I would just talk about the kids and homeschooling the kids. And um, it just takes up every ounce of your day and your time. And sometimes it's hard to shut off. Okay, I am no longer a teacher right now. I guess I'm still a mom, but I'm also a wife. And what does my husband need of me? And I know I've heard about it a lot in the public school system. Teachers are constantly bringing work home. They're bringing their students home. They're bringing all of these things home. And we're doing the exact same thing as homeschool moms with teaching our kids. Is, we're bringing all of that junk into our marriage, and it's our kids, and it's important, and dad plays an important role in that, but it's hard to shut that off. And I think that's important and something that we as moms need to do. And if we start when our kids are young, it's going to be a lot easier to continue to model that as our kids get older.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about how to do that, but let's take a break real quick. We'll be right back. We want to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible: BJU Press Homeschool, CTC Math, Apologia, and IEW. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. Visit the show notes for links to these great companies and thank them for supporting the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. We are back with Misty. You talked before the break about being able to just kind of separate the two and shut off mommy hat and put
Mm-hmm.
on wife hat, which I find I find that to be a very difficult thing for me to do because, like you said, that's kind of our whole world. I mean, it's what we do. We are our kids and our husband are our identity, but it seems almost more so our kids because maybe they're just so much more needy. And I don't say that in a bad way. But they need us as moms. And
Mm-hmm.
so constantly we're thinking about what the next thing is, what the next need is, what the next project is, what papers need to be graded, what lesson plans need to be made, and all those things. So how do you separate the two and be fully engaged with your husband?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that the biggest thing we have to remember is it's a choice. So, will homeschooling change your marriage? Absolutely, it will. But it's up to us if we want that to be a good thing or a bad thing. And we have a choice every day to just continue to love our husband and continue to live out what a marriage, should look like from a godly, perspective with our kids. And so I've been married for 20 years. It's crazy to me that I've been married that long. But there are a few things, I've learned through the years that I think are important, and I hopefully it can, benefit your listeners a little bit. And one of those is laughter. I think that one thing I forget, when you're in the midst of lots of kids, lots of littles, and all of the homeschooling things, is our husbands come home and they get the worst of us. They get the tired part of us. They get the I am, ready to just unload these kids a little bit and just have some breathing time. And sometimes we forget why we fell in love with our husband to begin with and what things we maybe did when we were, dating. And one of those things is laugh. Remember that, remember what makes your husband laugh, what makes you laugh. Find some things that you can just do with your husband together, whether it be a funny TV show that you guys used to watch together. My husband and mine's guilty pleasure is Friends. Some people will think I'm a horrible person for that, but we can sit and turn it on and just laugh with each other. And, that's kind of our guilty pleasure a little bit. So you don't fall out of love. You just have to work at it. And I think that, again, that's something that we forget when you've been married for years and years, that, marriage is work. And, there's nothing else I'd rather do with my time than work on my relationship with my husband and, continue to have a happy, thriving marriage. And that takes time. Whenever you're dating, you invest all of this time in that relationship. And then when you get married, you kind of don't. And I don't necessarily think that's what we should do. We should continue to work and continue to do what we can to invest in our marriage, whether that be going to, listening to podcasts on marriage, like you talked about the host, the guest you have this week that is doing the marriage. I cannot remember what you said his name was.
Bob Lepine.
Yes, Bob Lepine. So just listening to things like that, that's investing time in your marriage by, getting wisdom from others, that are walking down that path. Make time to talk and connect every day. So I'll send my husband like little texts, throughout the day of what the kids are doing, what we're learning, just send him texts that I love you. Put little notes in his lunchbox. When he comes home, just make time to talk, ask him about his day instead of just completely unloading everything that went wrong, throughout the day. I actually did that this week. I sent a picture of to my husband. He's like, "How's your day going?" And I sent a picture to him of cereal all over the floor of our kitchen. My youngest is a fifth grader. Explain to me why I'm still sweeping up cereal off of my floor. It's still happening. It's been 20 years and it's still happening. But I sent that to him and we kind of laughed about it. And, it keeps him connected, to us and to our family throughout the day.
I like that you talk about, because really what you're doing is you're talking about being intentional, which we talk about
absolutely.
on the podcast all the time. it has to do with parenting. It has to do with marriage. The things that we do don't just happen by accident.
Yes.
And, one of my favorite things, and now my husband works from home. And so he's here with us all day long. And so I see him all day long. But in the past, when he's worked outside of the home, we would send each other text messages and call each other and just check in and, just, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. I appreciate you." Those are the things that really do build your marriage. And you mentioned too, that you don't fall out of love. And I think that is such a powerful point. And you just breeze through that. But that is such an important thing to remember. We've been married 28 years. And it has not happened by accident. It was because we were committed to one another. And most importantly, because we were committed to the Lord. But there have been times where both of us have felt like we didn't love each other. And I would say that was definitely the beginning years of our marriage. We would get so upset with each other. We were still learning how to do this marriage thing. We were still learning what it looked like to serve one another and to love each other. But there definitely have been times where, I just felt like I do not even like him, much less love him. And I know he's felt that way about me, but we had committed to the Lord that this was for life, no matter what. We had made that covenant with God. And I'm so thankful that we stuck through even those difficult years, because we're so much stronger for it now. And we know that we're committed. We know that in the hardest times, we're committed to one another, and no one can break that apart. No one can destroy that. We can choose to destroy it on our own, but it's not about always feeling like you're in love. Sometimes it's just a decision that you have to make that, you know what, I love this person and I love the Lord. And so we're going to work this out and we're going to stay committed to each other. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, especially when you're in a really deep valley of your marriage, but that's when you cling to the Lord and just say, Lord, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'm trusting you to bring us through this time. And then, you mentioned just working at it. You have to work at it. It doesn't happen by accident.
Each of us can remember, whether you are at home right now with lots of littles, starting off on your homeschool journey, or you have teenagers and you're nearing, the end of your homeschool journey, who you were when you first started homeschooling or when you first got married and who you are now is different. There's going to be ups and downs, hills and valleys within your marriage and within that season. And it's just about growing together instead of growing apart. And it takes intentionality. It takes, waking up every single day and choosing your spouse every single day, day after day after day, because we took vows, till death do us part. We took vows under God. And I think that's important. And I think in a culture right now that throws, marriage out left and right, and there's not a lot of long-term relationships or marriages, modeled anymore, even within the church. I just think it's important to, intentionally live that out in front of our kids. And I don't know about you, but, our marriage has changed through the years a lot. We've changed jobs, we've changed, homeschool curriculums, we've changed education models. There's been different seasons, we've had special needs, and it's been different, up and down through the years. And I think that sometimes when those changes happen, we have those struggles, we have those hard times. And I think it's just really, really important to, just stay intentional and, remember that, this is who you're with, and, let's just continue to live this out each and every day.
Yeah. And be on the same team, cheer each other on, pray for each other. I mean, there are so many ways to be intentional with marriage and just joining together as husband and wife. I mean, there was a time when you really loved each other, or else you wouldn't be married. There was something that attracted you to one another. And so go back to that and trust the Lord to bring healing if healing needs to be brought, and to strengthen marriages. But we're out of time. So we're going to continue talking about marriage. We will be back on Wednesday to talk more about this. And I know you're not blogging anymore, but your blog is still up and you've got tons and tons of great articles on there. Where can people read those?
Yeah, findingjoyinthejourney.net.
Okay, we'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. If you've not yet signed up for our newsletter, go to schoolhouserocked.com. Sign up there so that you can stay in the loop on all things that are going on. And we will see you back here on Wednesday. Have a great day. Bye. The Homegrown Generation Family Expo is back. The Homegrown Generation Family Expo is a live and fully interactive online conference coming March 6th through 9th. Registration is now open at homegrowngeneration.com. It'll be 4 days of nonstop encouragement and fun that you can enjoy from the comfort of your home. Registration includes lifetime access to every session. Mark your calendars for March 6th through 9th and visit homegrowngeneration.com to register today.